Guys, the year is already halfway over, which is crazy. I don't know where the time has gone. It just serves as a reminder that time is marching forward. It goes on and on. You can't stop it, and we are inching closer to our inevitable doom. But to distract you from that, some great music has also come out. So I thought I'd give you my 10 favorite albums of the year so far. With my year-end list, I've had a lot of time to live with all the records, and I'm very certain about how I feel about them. When it comes to halfway through the year, I'm still kind of listening to and growing with some of these albums. So, and these rankings could change in the future. That's why I don't do a lot of reaction stuff on this channel. I sometimes need time for an album to grow on me. But regardless of all that, this is how I'm feeling right now. And before we get into that, here are some quick honorable mentions. You could find these in the description. And yeah, I did even enjoy that Kanye album, I'm not gonna lie. At number 10, we got 2 Star and the Dream Police by mk.gee. And this guy is one of the most talked about new artists in the indie scene, and with good reason. This guy just has an immaculate vibe. It's just great singer-songwriter music. If you're a fan of an artist like Dijon, this is going to be right up your alley. I will say maybe an essential experience as part of this album is these live performance videos he's been putting out. Just the raw recordings mixed with the beautiful visuals really do a lot. And the stripped back recordings just really help his voice shine, and you realize how much raw talent this guy really has. With me, I had heard some of these songs before, but as the performance videos started rolling out, that's when it really clicked and I really appreciated what he was doing. But regardless of that, the studio versions of these songs are also amazing. This guy is just one of the most exciting new artists out right now, and songs like Alessis are quickly becoming my most streamed songs of the year. At number 9, we got 2093 by Yeat. I live in 2093. Look, I have been a Yeat apologist for a while now. I've been a huge fan of this guy since his first big songs took off, and with this album, it feels like people are finally starting to understand just the genius of what Yeat is. He's always had this quirky experimentation to him, but unlike all his other albums, this isn't a collection of just catchy earworm singles. This is a full, immersive, science fiction, hip-hop experience. Like, the best way I could describe it is this feels like hip-hop's Blade Runner. Because while this isn't a concept album strictly in terms of the lyrics or telling a story, you do feel like you're in a different world when you listen to this album. And when I first listened to it, I did think it was a little bloated. It is a very long album, but as I've listened to it more, it's really started to grow on me because it isn't just an album, okay? It's a fully immersive experience. And when I have a lot of work to do, this is a great thing to just plug in my headphones and I'm completely transported into this sci-fi future world, and I'm just I'm typing up documents in Blade Runner. The production is just so intense and futuristic. It really creates its own original science fiction tone, but it's not just an album where the production carries the whole thing. It lends very well to what Yeat has been doing this whole time, just the eccentricities in his voice, because he is just a very strange artist and a weird person in general. So overall, I'm just in awe of how bold of a move this album was for Yeat. I hope in the long run something like this works out for Yeat and he explores more projects of this variety in the future, because I freaking love 2093. I live in 2093. And if you've been sleeping on Yeat, if you've been hating on Yeat, I would still give this album a try. This might just change your mind. At number 8, we have Bright Future by Adrianne Lenker. And Adrianne Lenker is just proving herself to be one of the best songwriters of this generation. It's very strange, but also funny and fitting to me that somebody this far outside of pop music has written so many TikTok hits. But if you're unfamiliar, this is nothing like TikTok music. This is a very personal and intimate, stripped back, singer-songwriter, acoustic guitar type album, and right off the bat, you're just hit with this 6-minute, very quiet, barely any instrumentation, just this soft, whispery voice, singing some of the best storytelling you're probably going to hear this year. Just so intimate and powerful and kind of sad at the same time. That's kind of the MO of Adrianne Lenker, and especially on this album. It's all very sad on the surface, but there is depth to it. They're like the kind of sad songs that just feel like a warm hug, where it's like, we know you're sad, we're sad too, we're all sad together, and it'll kind of be okay. That's honestly, that's kind of encapsulated on the song Sadness is a Gift, which is one of my favorites on this album. This isn't the type of album that's going to be for every occasion, but when you're ready to just hunker down and listen to something really low-key and actively listen for the storytelling and writing that's happening, this is a great album. At number 7, we have Tidal Memory EXO by Iglooghost. Now, Iglooghost is my favorite electronic artist. He is my favorite IDM artist, which is a term I just learned recently, because it's not EDM. It's more complicated than EDM. It's intelligent dance music. But Iglooghost's whole thing, if you're not familiar with him, is there is a lore to Iglooghost music that I haven't dug too deep in, but essentially there's like this planet or this other world, and Iglooghost is kind of investigating the history of these alien creatures. And again, while I don't know any of the specifics behind some of the Iglooghost characters, it's very clear that there is a story just in the instrumental music. Because if you look at the artwork, at the music videos, or just all the visuals associated with this music, it's a lot of this organic stuff, this alien stuff, or like even prehistoric looking fossils mixed with those like machinery elements. And that's exactly what the music sounds like, because it's very industrial, it's very glitchy, but it doesn't sound robotic. It sounds organic. The songs sound like living, breathing creatures. And that's kind of the best way I could describe this. I think you'll just have to give it a try for yourself. But again, this is an album I just love playing front to back and totally drifting off into whatever alien place he's taking me. This also might have the hardest album cover of the year. At number 6, we have We Don't Trust You by Metro Boomin and Future. And this is one of the most popular hip-hop albums of the year for a reason. And historically, I'm not even that into Future. Like he's been around long enough that I could fully appreciate the influence he's had. And a lot of rappers I love are very clearly inspired by Future. So I've just chopped it up to a lot of the old Future stuff I just don't necessarily get. But when he teams up with Metro Boomin, something just happens. Like those two just gel together so well. And I'm so glad we got not just one full album, but 2 full albums of both of them together. And this album is just hit after hit. It feels tight and concise, even though it's an hour long. I love this dark cinematic direction that Metro Boomin has been going. He knows how to utilize Future's voice well. The first 2 songs just set the vibe perfectly. I love Cinderella. Of course, we got Like That with the Kendrick verse that started the beef of the year, and Type Shit might be up there as my most listened to song of the year. Smoking, drinking, activists on some Scrooge type of shit. Just a sad hoe running through the crew type of shit. Just a great hook and the infectious Cardi verse I can't get out of my head. I know she on some Machi model shit. Never be a boss, bitch. At number 5, we have New World Depression by the Suicide Boys. Now, Suicide Boys have been around for a while, and over the years, they managed to amass this very large, very passionate fan base. And they've managed to stay independent with their own record label. So they're probably one of the most successful acts to come out of the underground. And I've dipped into their music here and there since about 2016, but this is where like a project as a whole really clicked for me. And I'm going to do an entire video on their discography at some point, because I've been listening back to the older projects, but this album I do think kind of sounds like their most polished and their most focused project. The beats on this thing are just great, just grimy southern hip hop. The mixing on this thing. It sounds so crisp. The drums hit so hard. I don't know how they do it. And while I've enjoyed many a Suicide Boy song in the past, just their whole shtick is just really shining to me. Just this 3-6 Mafia inspired beats with this like Bone Thugs and Harmony type flow, then mixed with these emo lyrics and almost like add a dash of Juggalo to it. Like the fact that it works, they just found the perfect formula. And I think with this album, they really perfected it. My favorite song on this is still Are You Gonna See the Rose in the Vase or the Dust on the Table, which is such a long emo title, but I live for that first beat drop. Probably my favorite moment on this entire album. Also, when he says, I can't fall in love, closest I could do is a trauma bond. Like, damn, felt that. So yeah, if you're new to the Suicide Boys, this is probably a great entry point. This is probably their most accessible album, and I think it's up there as one of their best. At number 4, we have Brat by Charli XCX, and if you subscribe to this channel, you know how I feel about this album. I think it's the best pop album of the year. I'm almost comfortable calling it now. I think it will remain the best pop album of the year. And it really just encapsulates every facet of Charli XCX in her career so far. It melds everything she has done perfectly together. It's just pop banger after pop banger. There are elements of experimental production from when she's dipped in hyperpop, but at the same time, every song is still very accessible. You could play in a club, everyone would be dancing, and the writing on this album, it has so much depth. There is way more to chew on than most albums that are this danceable. It's like there's your typical braggadocious and party lyrics, but then also just songs about growing up, being confused, trying to figure out how to live your life, songs about navigating relationships, a song about loss. Just there's everything on this album, and it never once relents. This album just captures a moment for me. This is really what life in 2024 feels like when you're trying to have a good time and you have no idea what you're doing or if you're doing your best, but you're trying the best you can and you're trying to have a good time while you're doing it. I'm just in awe of what this album does, and I'm so glad it exists. So if you want some fun pop music, check out Brat. At number 3, we have Bad Cameo by James Blake and Lil Yachty. And this album just came out, so I'm still digesting it and figuring out exactly how I feel about it, but off the bat, it is just one of the most unique things that's come out this year, and I'm so glad this happened. James Blake is just one of my favorite artists active right now, and Lil Yachty's new psychedelic experimental direction has been really interesting, and the two meld together so well on this project, and I don't know exactly how to describe it because I'm still digesting it, but the wonkiness of what Lil Yachty does just pulls out so much new stuff from James Blake. It's just a truly one-of-a-kind, unique sound. I think Midnight is my favorite song, but I love just the Midnight and Woo back to back. I love this just kind of washed out, serene sounds that James Blake sings over. I love when James Blake is producing this absolutely crazy stuff for Lil Yachty to rap over. I feel like I'm just the intended audience for this album. If anyone was like, who asked for a Lil Yachty James Blake album? It's me. I'm who this was made for. I love this thing so much. I can't wait to listen to it more and more throughout the rest of the year. At number 2, we have Country by Medium Build. And man, this Medium Build album, one of my favorite discoveries of the year. I had heard Medium Build in passing. I've heard like the most popular songs, but this being the first full album I've heard of his, I was just blown away. This album just has my favorite songwriting, just these very passionate songs about growing up, nostalgia, heartbreak, getting older, trying to navigate getting older, missing the old times. And the album's called Country, but it isn't strictly a country album. Like one or two songs sound like they could be Zach Bryan songs, but that's about as country as it gets, at least on the instrumental side. But on the songs about heartbreak side, it really does feel like kind of what old school country songwriting was. Like, I can imagine a Merle Haggard taking these lyrics and making his own versions of some of these songs. And I feel like this album is just targeted toward people exactly my age. Just the crushing weight of getting older is really starting to settle in. Songs like Cutting Through the Country, Can't Be Cool Forever, they just scream of, oh no, I'm fully grown up now, and this is life. This is all there is. Oh shit. Some of the best love songs, some of the best losing love songs, and one of my favorite moments on this whole album, the song In My Room, a banger. As a kid that grew up mostly in his room, I feel this song on a spiritual level, but when he sings just so passionately with all his heart, look at this poster of the entire Simpsons cast. Oh, I love that so much. But yeah, just one of the most sincere albums of the year. Some of the best songwriting, but there is a little more behind the production than the Adrianne Lenker album. So there are some bangers that you could just play whenever if you want to. I highly recommend this album. And at number 1, we have Scrapyard by Quadeca, which should be no surprise. And honestly, since we got a bunch of singles from this at the end of last year, I've lived with a lot of these songs for a long time, and I just never get bored of them. And look, I got it right here. So if you're new to Quadeca, basically the whole thing behind this album is he made a bunch of music over the past 5 or so years, but his last 2 albums were very conceptual, and so a lot of stuff just didn't fit. And so these are the leftovers. These are the scraps. And it turns out Quadeca's scraps are better than a lot of artists' actual songs. There's not a lot of consistency throughout the whole album, but not in a bad way. I mean that in a way of you just get a plethora of different sounds. And it's crazy that one guy makes all of this. You just have these very fuzzy experimental hip hop songs, like a dash of shoegaze almost. Then Guess Who and Effortless are straight hip hop songs, and they're rage songs, but also super industrial at the same time. A La Carte is almost like if Connor Oberst made hip hop, which, if you imagine that, it might not sound good, but like imagine the best case scenario of that. Guide Dog is just a straight acoustic guitar ballad, and it's so powerful. I love listening to that. And then Texas Blue with Kevin Abstract is just one of the most beautiful songs I think will come out this year. Again, like, this entire album is produced just by him, and he manages to blend a lot of different things together in ways you wouldn't expect. I can't wait to see what he does in the future. I can't wait for his next concept album. Scrapyard is still feeling like my number 1 album of the year so far. Also, with the vinyl release, we got even more songs. You can check it out on his YouTube, but there's a whole EP of the scraps that didn't make Scrapyard. And it turns out that Quadeca's throwaways off his Throwaway album are still better than a lot of artists' actual music. This guy just doesn't miss. If you aren't on the Quadeca train, you want to hop on now, because it's going some cool places. So yeah, those are my top 10 albums of 2024 so far. We still have half a year left to go. There's a lot of good looking music just on the horizon coming up that I can't wait to listen to. That could probably shake this list up. But to stay up to date on all that, you'll want to subscribe to this channel. And guys, after you subscribe, leave a comment with your favorite albums of the year so far. If there's one that I missed, one you don't think I heard, one I should give a second listen to, let me know. I really want to check out what you guys are feeling as well. So subscribe to this. You can follow me everywhere at Robert2_Isaac. I also have a filmmaking channel called @WrittenByPod, and we have a short film coming up. We just shot it. I don't know exactly when it will come out. It is a music related horror short, so this is probably up the alley of a lot of you guys. It was filmed on this set, like with this record setup, so if you're interested in a horror short film about a record collector, subscribe to @WrittenByPod, subscribe to this channel, and guys, I will see you soon.